Like, hey, Tarkin is going to betray you, and he's trying to set you up. You guys should get out of here. Okay, kid, you want to come with us? Hi, hop on, crikey, and they take off.
Hello, welcome to Galactic Initiative. I'm your host, Jeff. This show is our recap and analysis of Aftermath, the Bad Batch series premiere. David and Sean are with me. Welcome, David.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Welcome, Sean.
Hello, my friend.
Let's begin. First, a new opening for Star Wars programs on Disney+. Grievous, Chopper, Crosshair, a commando droid, an Imperial cadet, Bo-Katan, Hunter, and I believe 2 others replace the sequel trilogy assortment. BB-8, Captain Phasma, Kylo Ren. On the planet Collar, Padawan Caleb Doom, with a Freddie Prinze voice too mature for his body, leads the Bad Batch to the battle, and they quickly turn the tide. Caleb will become Kanan Jarrus from Rebels. Immediately after the battle, Order 66 prompts the clones to kill Depa Palaba. All Bad Batch members except Crosshair are unaffected by the order.
Just like the last episodes of the Clone Wars, during episode 3, that I really liked the side story that was going on. I really like the continuity. I like that Kanan is involved. We got to see his escape. Having read the Marvel comic book, this is definitely a different interpretation or iteration of how Kanan was able to survive Order 66. And I'm wondering if they're also kind of setting that up.
I enjoyed the intro. I like the narration piece, like in the Clone Wars. When I first saw it, I thought it could be Kanan, but no, this is nothing like it was in the comic. And then sure enough, it turns out to be Kanan. So great. Again, we're shrinking the universe a tad, and we'll talk more about that later, but it was fine. It was good. It was a nice intro. It was fast paced, and it got me hooked. It was interesting, the code situation and the changes and all the heightened security and everything. Even though the war is over, you would think that the mood would be slightly different.
Tech reveals the Reg's programming, which he calls inhibited cognitive function for the sake of unquestioning obedience. Says the Kaminoans practices are well documented, also says the cloners manipulated pre-existing aberrations in the Batch's DNA. Tech believes the Batch is immune to the effects of the programming, Echo included.
I don't understand. The chip was something that was put in there. The chip is in their heads. So even though they're all enhanced super clones, they have chips, but everybody's fine, except are we really sure we're fine? Because for whatever reason, Crosshair keeps talking about following orders and all that. But there's a lot of conversations about how they don't follow orders. Yes, every team has a leader, but their leader is also operating completely independent of everything and every command structure. I mean, we even got that in the last episodes of season 7. They don't even know who they report to anymore. They just show up, somebody tells them to go blow something up, and they go do it. And this is jumping ahead slightly, of course, but why wouldn't you just take the entire crew and drop them in the machine and zap their chips and enhance their obedience?
It's difficult for me to believe that the issue of the Reg's programming has never come up before. There's some gray area, and the writers are probably going to keep that gray area as plot armor. It gives them some leeway.
Who's been sending these guys out on missions? Has it been the Jedi Council? Has it been somebody else that's in the Republic?
Perhaps that's a question that can bring a little fun later in the show. Perhaps there has been someone pulling the strings all along. The clones know them, but none of the Jedi know them. So yes, the Jedi are the generals, but they don't seem to be the ones calling for Clone Force 99.
All the more reason to have it be Yoda, his little secret unit.
They're having this conversation, and Crosshair is the one who's not really upset about the systematic destruction of the Jedi Order. He's been after Hunter about the Padawan. He's now saying, I don't really have a problem with whatever political entity we serve as long as I get to go on missions because I'm a good soldier, and doesn't even really have anything to say about it. He's just, yep, that's what we do. We're troops. Nobody seems to be catching on to this. This is becoming a real ideological split within the group.
Yeah, the intro of Omega from the trailer, there was a long discussion between us regarding whether Omega was a male or a female, and it's made very quickly clear that Omega is a female. very excited to meet the Bad Batch because she has learned quite a bit about their lore. Pretty interesting mini conversation.
When we are introduced to her, she calls herself Omega, and then for the rest of the show, we all call her Omega. Talking about the clones, these guys, they're all dark-complected, dark-haired fellows, and she's pasty white, blonde-haired. Like, there's not even it's not even saying like, oh, well, we took the genetic material and we created a female version of Boba Fett just to see what would happen, or Jango Fett, excuse me. We're just getting a completely different aesthetic.
Is this stone going to turn out to be a tracking device? Nala Se always seems to find her around Kamino. The war's end cast doubt on the need for clones, and conscripted soldiers would be half the cost, according to Tarkin. Lama Su mentions a contract for continued production. Tarkin rejects the contract with the Republic, which no longer exists.
So I really enjoyed the scene where they're having a conversation between Tarkin and the cloners, the whole conversation about the transition from Empire and the evaluation of the project. Tarkin is arguing for cheap troops on one hand. They're arguing for him to continue to buy clones because they're superior. But there's really no conversation about the fall of democracy or the end of the Republic or even the death of the Jedi. It's just more, it's a serious business negotiation about power and troops and money. But I do think it's funny that within that conversation, we see that the stormtroopers can't shoot anything because they're the cheap conscripts. And if you want really good, high quality troops that can actually hit a target, you got to buy clones.
I guess since it's the original trilogy, maybe we have a tendency to think of the stormtroopers in the Empire as superior, but clearly now there's no argument. The clone troopers are far superior. When you use stormtroopers, you're doing it on the cheap.
Which is interesting because the tactics of the Clone War are more suited to a conscript army. Some of those darker episodes, when we see how some of the Jedi don't care about what happens to them in battle, they're basically cannon fodder. And that attitude would be more suited to the stormtroopers because you know they're ineffective, so you have to overwhelm your enemy with sheer numbers. It just feels like in this moment we're kind of getting the wink and the nod to, and that's why stormtroopers are no good.
And this scene also reinforces Obi-Wan's conversation with Dex so long ago in Attack of the Clones, where Dex tells Obi-Wan, it depends on your manners and the size of your pocketbook. So not that we ever had high esteem for the Kaminoans, but now after this conversation, it feels like they're trying to sell Tarkin to make more credits. We're angry. Human beings are their product. It's very cold. The Imperial thing to do would be to use disloyalty of the enhanced clones against the entire cloning project, shut it down, wipe out all the existing clones, but steal the cloning technology for use by the Emperor.
During the dining scene, you start to get the sense that the rest of the group, besides Crosshair, are starting to really feel tense. I would be telling Wrecker to stop talking, sit here, let's eat, and then let's get out of here. I think they could have maybe done a little bit better, but it does show the tension between the 99 group versus the clone army. Not my favorite out of the whole show. I'm not big into food fights.
We talk about this being a tight episode, and it is. There isn't a lot of quote-unquote wasted time. This scene feels a bit wasted. What did we really accomplish? Omega now thinks of Clone Force 99 as her friends. I don't know. If they pass Tarkin or they see Tarkin at a distance, we get to the same place. We don't need this scene. Yeah, because we'd already established tension between Regs and the Bad Batch. It's already happened. When they arrived on Kamino, the reaction of the shock troopers to them. Tech tries to talk to a regular clone in the hallway. The guy shoulder checks him. Yeah, so we don't need a food fight. But what's strange about all of this is this just since Order 66, because all of the clone commanders love the Bad Batch. Commander Cody, the clasping of hands and the touching of elbows. Now they have a relationship with Rex. That there is a weird dynamic that some of the clones really like them and know them. Here on Kamino, where more of the clones should know who they are and know their accomplishments, it's a weird contradiction.
the evaluation of the clone program should have been, we won the war, therefore the clone program is good. If you spent 1 trillion credits on clones and you'd lost the war, you'd have been like, that was a bad idea. You have all of these troops. You might not need to buy more, but you've got plenty of them. I think this is more of Tarkin and his problem with clones, and then trying to eliminate the few clones that are not, I guess, conforming, for lack of a better word. Yeah, they're the best troops we have, but they're also the most troublesome because they don't follow orders and they don't do these things, and they have long hair and whatever. I think he's dressing it up as something else because clearly he's already made up his mind.
When they say 5 that are remaining, he obviously assumes that the 5 that are down there are the 5. That's not the case because Echo's not one of them. What we find out later regarding Omega. So I did like that aspect of it.
Tarkin, I think, wants to see them in action after witnessing the fight in the dining hall because he's looking for an excuse to shut this program down. As you said, we know how it ends. He sees an opportunity to bring these defective clones into the arena and have them embarrass the cloning project. And when it doesn't happen, then his axe to grind becomes, well, they don't follow orders. So there's no winning with Tarkin. What's the next step? Okay, they're disloyal. So I need to send them on a mission, give them orders I know they'll disobey. It's a trap. It's a setup. Tech, they sent us to eliminate innocent civilians. Crosshair, who said they're innocent. A revelation from Tech, Omega is an enhanced clone, the 5th. Echo is a reg.
I was a little disappointed that's all we're going to get with Saw Gerrera. Again, I would love to have him be more of an integral part in a series.
I will admit on this very podcast, I have been a proponent of more about Saw Gerrera. But I kind of groaned a little bit when they revealed him. And it goes back to my comments about the whole Kanan Jarrus situation. It feels like it's the same characters. And it didn't feel like Saw. When we get cartoon Saw, when we did see him in Rebels, he was more Rogue One Saw than he wasn't. And I don't know, it's not that far in the future. He feels like he's a much bigger player in the galaxy than he should be. Tarkin knows him by name and says, "Oh, you're cavorting with Saw Gerrera. You're bad clones." Anyway, I have some issues with this constant overlapping that's been going on and this trying to weave everything together. We don't necessarily have to do that in order for it to be a good, fun, and entertaining Star Wars story.
I was surprised to see the shutting down of the droid and the rough treatment of Omega. This is more grittiness than we typically get from these shows.
We're learning more about this inhibitor chip situation, and I'm sure more of this will come into play, and there'll be more conversations as the season goes on. But I think it was interesting that even though Crosshair was exhibiting a lot of obedience to the Empire and some fascistic tendencies, that they still felt like they had to recharge that and push every last little bit out.
Crosshair's new helmet looks like a Shadow Trooper helmet.
The Empire, once again, showing its ineptitude, takes all of their gear and their equipment and everything and takes it from their quarters and from their personages and puts it in boxes and conveniently lines it up next to the escape vessel that's unguarded. The perfect Omega clone can pick up a blaster without ever having fired one before in her life, and the serendipitous acquiring of new skills. I mean, we're already in science fiction, we're already in cartoon, we're already in the Star Wars universe. We have stretched our disbelief to the point where we have now broken it. Somewhere around Saw Gerrera, this show really started to go downhill for me. And this battle at the end, the battle could have been a little better. It is what it is. So on to episode 2.
Omega doesn't know how she made such an excellent shot to disarm Crosshair. Claims she had never fired a blaster. Wrecker has a comfort object called Lula.
The stuffed animal thing, yeah, looks kind of like a cross between a rabbit and a loth cat. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of annoying. And the little girl has to save his stuffy for him. I mean, it's just, again, it's another one of these things. Just start stacking these little things up, right? I'm perfect with a blaster, never having seen one in my life. I just have a bad feeling about this, like David said at the beginning. A bad feeling.
Next steps. Hunter wants to lay low. Omega asks about help from friends. Hunter says, plot a course for J19. We know a guy.
So I don't think it's Saw. I think it's going to be Rex.
Is it going to be Rex, or is it going to be Cut LaQuain from the Clone Wars? So you remember the episode when they land on the planet and they find the deserter?
Yeah.
Not the guy who
Yeah.
lost his memory and was working in the kitchen, but the other guy who was living at a wife
with the
and
wife
kids.
and the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they didn't. The Bad Batch doesn't know him.
Well, but he lived in J19. Well, it was Sector J19.
Nice connection. Okay, I did not make that connection. I did not recall.
That's a possibility. I mean, and that's a deep cut into the Clone Wars. But again, like you had mentioned earlier, it's Dave Filoni's world, and he loves to play in it. To go back into that show and pull some of those elements out, whether it's revisiting planets or bringing back characters or whatever, I think would be great. Especially if you're trying to not necessarily direct this show into the sequel trilogy or touching on things that will lead you to the sequel trilogy. I know we're in the interregnum period between episodes 3 and 4, but it feels like a lot of the media we're getting right now is trying to push us toward the sequel, situation. So it would be nice to see that. Nice to see them stay in that period and play with those things.
Overall score on a scale of 1 to 10.
I enjoyed it. I like the connections. I'm going to give it a solid 8.
Honestly, I'd say it's a 7 for me. There's some things about the presentation of this episode that were really visually stunning. Most of it was really high quality animation. It had all the the great elements of a good Star Wars show. The reason why I couldn't go higher than a 7 is just because of all the stuff I mentioned about it. I feel like we're going back into Rey territory.
So I enjoyed this premiere more than I enjoyed the premiere of the Clone Wars and Rebels. That's a good sign. I like all the characters. Seeing Tarkin is awesome. The layers we added to the Kaminoans, I actually don't mind Omega. Saw's brief appearance was great. The way that he was able to articulate the situation in the galaxy and where he stands and why he's fighting against the Empire. So many things here that I like. So solid 8 for me. Great start. Very excited for the next episode on Friday.
In some ways, I feel like Disney is playing it safe. I mean, we're still in this original Star Wars universe, the same little sandbox that George Lucas has given us. They've had some stumbles. They've had some screw-ups. But at what point do we start creating a new sandbox?
They can't go forward, so they can only go backward, which the High Republic did. And you could do Knights. You could do Knights of the Old Republic, but you're stuck now. You've got a dead end waiting for you after Return of the Jedi.
Well,
so where are you going to go?
Well, go to a different part of the universe. I mean, seriously,
it's one galaxy.
Then go to a different galaxy.
Then it wouldn't be Star Wars.
Yeah, different galaxy is Star Trek, dude.
Oh boy.
Because if it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and Star Trek happens a long time in the future in our galaxy right here, then if you want to go to another galaxy, David, why don't you watch some Star Trek?
I do watch some Star Trek, and yeah, I see your point. Well, why don't we just forget that the sequels ever happened and veer off?
Now we're talking. Okay, now we're talking. But this won't be the show to do it, at least not on its own.
So technically, where Ezra went from one spot to another, couldn't you do like an alt-universe type of a thing?
That would be so bad for Star Wars.
Okay,
in my opinion, that's not the way Star Wars works. We can't do time warps or jumps. We can't do a multiverse. I think that would be really bad for Star Wars.
I agree, but didn't they kind of do that, though, in Rebels?
Well, they did.
It got weird. Yeah, it got weird. And if that's the only way to get rid of the sequels, then I say use it just the one more time.
Okay.
But don't create an alternate timeline. Change something in the existing timeline that creates the butterfly effect. Then you've opened up the doors to a new future.
You don't be afraid to be in the timeline. I mean, Clone Wars did such a huge service to the Star Wars universe by taking place almost literally between two films, except for the last little bit of overlap. But it actually saved the prequels for a lot of people. So don't be afraid to play in the timeline. It's just, again, like we always say, and I always come back to, if you tell good stories, the rest of the stuff sorts itself out. You just got to have good stories and good characters. And I think that's the problem right now with Disney Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy, is people are more worried about agenda and not worried about stories. So if you can tell great stories and have great characters, all that other stuff sorts itself out.
Our discussion of Aftermath, the Bad Batch series premiere, has come to an end. Thank you, David.
Save the rebellion! Save the dream!
Thank you, Sean.
I wish I could put my fist through this whole lousy, beautiful town.
Galactic Initiative is not authorized or endorsed by Lucasfilm Limited. The name Star Wars and all related materials are registered trademarks of Lucasfilm Limited, a subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, all rights reserved. Galactic Initiative is a registered trademark, and other product and company names are trademarks of their respective holders. Use does not imply affiliation or endorsement.